Michael J.
I mean, there's so much to talk about in the world of Magic the Gathering, but then these Modern Horizons 2 spoilers came out, and I didn't care about anything else.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was kind of one of the most foregone conclusions ever. The whole Tainted Pact is going to be broken, and then it immediately was and was immediately banned.
Yeah,
so, I mean, Tainted Pact is still legal, technically, because I guess they still, so watch for that. But Thassa's Oracle being banned means that trying, instant win, kill decks that deck themselves are going to have to rely on Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, a little bit more.
So,
but that, yeah,
you just want to take
that's just
30 seconds and just walk through how the Tainted Pact deck works. So this deck's like all singletons except for 2 Tainted Pacts and 2 Thassa's Oracles, right? Before they banned Thassa's Oracle, obviously. So how's it work? How's it roll?
I mean, you can just Tainted Pact, depending on the board state, you can just Tainted Pact for Tainted Pact, or you can Tainted Pact for Thassa's Oracle. Generally you would Tainted Pact for Thassa's Oracle, and if you didn't already have it, but if you actually assemble it already where you have Thassa's Oracle and Tainted Pact, then you can just deck yourself with Tainted Pact.
You can never turn over, because there's theoretically one Tainted Pact and one Thassa's Oracle maximum in your deck at this point, right? So if you've got no ability to turn over the same card twice, then all your cards go to the grave and you just play Thassa's Oracle and win on the spot, right? If you have 4 mana.
So if you have 4 mana, you basically you just get to keep going. You can stop whenever you want, though. So it's not like you force yourself to get decked. Remember, as a backup plan, you can just use Tainted Pact as a Demonic Tutor.
Oh.
You can just stop at any point.
That's a good point. Or you could get a land with it.
Right. The key here is that by having no duplicates, except for if you have 2 Tainted Pacts, it's fine because you're inherently casting one for it to ever matter. And then having 2 Thassa's Oracles works because that's the thing you're going to stop on anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you already have a Thassa's Oracle, in which case you're going to want to deck yourself.
Yep.
So the having to assemble 6 mana with the far more vulnerable, Jace, Wielder of Mysteries just slows the whole thing down by a turn,
Oh, more than a turn, right? 2 turns, kind of.
Well, the thing about Tainted Pact, you can't just play Tainted Pact on your opponent's end step, deck yourself, untap and drop Jace. But if you actually have an opening where you can stick a Jace, then you can just win outright, But yeah, if you want to do it all in one turn, it takes 6 mana. So it's kind of like the Desecration Demon situation.
Well, could you do it like
back when it had Oracle?
Like on turn 3, can your opponent just do whatever and you cast Tainted Pact, leave yourself 1 card in your library, and then? Well,
you have to if you already have the one of your 2 Jace, Wielder of Mysteries in your hand.
Yeah, I'm saying if you have the Jace in this case.
Yes. Yeah, if you have the Jace and enough mana, then on turn 3 you can Tainted Pact, leave yourself 1 card at the end, draw it, play land, play Jace, and win on turn 4.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds fancy.
So probably still going to be a real deck. Watch for that. But Modern Horizons 2, as soon as it comes up, I mean, you can just solve all your problems with Counterspell. But we talked about Counterspell last week. There are some out-of-this-world hits to talk about this week, including a different kind of 1-in-a-black selection spell, Profane Tutor. What do you think of the latest? You can't play this card, but it suspends. Suspend 2, 1-in-a-black, Demonic Tutor. So it's a Demonic Tutor, but on a Suspend 2.
It's a, quote, fixed Demonic Tutor. So it's the cost of a Demonic Tutor at 2 turns slower than a Demonic Tutor. Potential upshot is that it has no casting cost, so if you want to do some cheats, maybe you can do some... It doesn't seem cheat-worthy to me, but...
What? How is this not cheat-worthy for those As Foretold decks?
I mean...
Don't you want to just bust this out in an As Foretold deck?
They don't have black yet. You're saying they'll change their universe to accommodate black?
Well, some of them do. I mean, in the past, you've seen some of those, Goryo's Vengeance hybrids, but it depends on how you want to do it. I think this looks like a very attractive proposition.
I accept your challenge on that one. I think this card. I think this card is fine. I'm cool on it though. That's my current assessment. It's not. Yeah, I think it'll definitely see play. It's definitely going to do some work as a suspend card. I'm very cool on this card as a cheatsy card though.
See, I'm actually cool on it as a suspend card, and I think its play it's going to be like a role player for the cheats.
Okay, so that means in actuality it will see no play either as a suspend card or as a cheats card.
Well, why would you play this card when you could play the other black card, Grief? Dude, what's going on with this card? This is the 2 black elemental incarnation, 3/2 menace. When Grief enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card and has evoke, exile a black card from your hand.
So this is like Unmask?
Yeah, it's like an Unmask, except you get a 3/2, getting a 3/2 menace for 0 mana is unbelievable.
Yeah, so first of all, Unmask was a heavily played card in multiple archetypes, right?
Now, you do got to remember, though, that it will die. Because it's Evoke, like Moldrifter,
yeah,
it will die. So you do have Unmask with upside, but you have the backup plan of just dropping it as a 3/2 menace. But anyway, sorry.
With Unmask, right?
Right, with Unmask.
I would just remind everybody, we played I think 3 Unmasks in Napster, and Unmask was, I think, a 4 of in the extended kind of hatred decks of that era, the Dave Price.
Well, I came in 9th at Pro Tour Chicago with 12 discard, 12 pitch spell Necro. Yeah, because Eric Taylor's construction that used 4 Unmasks.
I forgot about that, Jazz, man. I guess all free spells is pretty great when you can just pay 1 life for an extra card.
Yeah. You end up with 4 Unmask, 4 Contagion, 4 Spinning Darkness. But yeah, Unmask is, it sees play in Legacy and Vintage, in particular in unfair decks. But there's Grief, the fact that you can actually cast it as a creature and have it be a very quality play is a very attractive proposition. But there's actually some borderline unfair stuff you can do with it anyway, most notably Ephemerate. Right? If you pay white to blink it with, you can just go turn 1. As long as you have a white mana, turn 1, exile a black card, play Grief with the trigger on the stack, Ephemerate it to blink it out, and then it'll come back. So you get to double Thoughtseize your opponent on the first turn, and now you just have the 3/2 in play.
Yeah. So
and then when the rebound happens from Ephemerate, you'll get a 3rd card.
Oh my god!
That combo it's insane.
Wait,
that's bonkers good. You get triple Thoughtseize and a 3/2 menace at the end of it.
So you get them with 3 Thoughtseizes and keep a 3/2 menace at the cost of 2 cards.
And 1 mana. Yeah, so for 1 mana on turn 1, it's 3 cards, because you did have to exile black.
You exile a black card.
So on turn 1...
But the Grief isn't a card. Yeah. You keep the Grief.
Well, that's one of your cards. I mean, you needed 3 cards, Ephemerate, Grief, and a black card. And then you got 3 thoughts. You get to unmask your opponent. You get to steal 3 cards from your opponent's hand for your 3 cards, but you're just up a 3/2 menace, and you got selection. You literally took their 3 best cards. So I don't know. Getting to double Thoughtseize your opponent on turn 1 with your white mana, and then on the following turn do it again. Dude, that's so insane. I mean, you get to Thoughtseize them a 3rd time, that's ridiculous.
This is a quality card even without the Ephemerate combo,
yeah.
I think. This just seems like a card. It's just better than Unmask.
Yeah, this card is better than Unmask, but it has another powerful ability, which is that you can use it in conjunction with Unmask. First of all, it's better than Unmask in particular in dredge decks that you know how the dredge decks will always play 4 Unmasks, the ones that have no mana where they're just playing Bazar. getting to play, getting to use your unmasks, but have them be griefs, so that you can actually potentially trigger bridge from below.
Oh,
you can have an extra creature in your graveyard for things like Golgari Grave Troll. You have an extra creature for lots of, grief is just so much better than unmasked for those people. It's not even funny.
I mean, just evoking grief potentially triggers bridge from below.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so good.
I know,
right?
I'm just saying it in a sentence because I had to wrap my skull around it.
What also gives you something to do with the bridge from below that's stuck in your hand if you ever have one of those.
Oh, that's sick. Not that you could cast it.
No, I'm saying you exile it to your grief.
Yeah, I'm saying not that you could cast
yeah.
it. Those decks don't have any land, right?
Yeah, but you can cast the grief with it. Yeah, so you still get the use out of it. But you can also, if you want, you can just play with 4 griefs and some unmasks.
I thought that's what you were saying.
That's
I'm down, man.
Yeah, you can actually do it, man. So grief is shaping up to be one of the most influential cards, and man, they are not kidding with the name of this one. This is a griefer card, all right. But
I
do think this card is going to see a lot of fair play, also, though.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, what is fair? Like, I mean, what are the fair decks in Modern now? Right, like burn variants. Like, you play this in Jund?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do, right? Like, if you're going to play it fair, it's kind of advantageous that you can play it in a Jund deck where it can be the last man standing, but it also can give you some extra discard without you just being all in on the 1-mana spells. It's also the synergies are very real. Like, you can call against command back your discard spell on time, right? You evoked it initially to break up their combo, but then you can call against command, and if you're in a hurry, you could evoke it again, but really you can just curve perfect where you make them discard a spell or a card with call against command, and you get back grief, untap, drop grief, just casting it, and get their last card.
Oh, oh my gosh, that's nice. I was thinking a similar thing, which is not at all like what you just said, but probably would go in the same deck. There could be just a new sort of rock deck, Jund deck that uses grief that maybe has a lot of multicolored black cards. So like Kolaghan's Command would be an example, Abrupt Decay. Like, just lean your card. A lot of those decks have cards that are very close in power, and they just, you choose one card over another one because you like it a little bit better. Just choose all the ones that are kind of black, and then you can make your grief so much better, I think.
Well, you can make it a little better. I don't know how much better you're making it.
I mean, you're not going to grief very much with a Tarmogoyf.
No, but like, you only need one black card. It's not like you need to have all black cards. The thing I wonder is if there's some sort of a mid-rangey deck that just happens to have Ephemera in it anyway, because you have a few other combos that are worth doing. I don't know what all that might look like, but like, for instance, you want to make sure that you do have a critical mass of black cards, but if you have a couple other triggers, it's not like it's out of the question to play Shriekmaw, right? And Shriekmaw Ephemerate is a hell of a combo.
Are you imagining like an Abzan deck?
I don't know. Have to see what the other enters the battlefield triggers are, because you really want to make sure that this Ephemerate is just a good card in your deck,
Yeah, I buy it.
It's possible that you just play in an Orzhov deck, We'd have to see. Like, you got to just make sure that you got some that you're playing out fast enough. But I think this card is going to be real influential. There is one more black card that in the Modern Horizons 2 spoiler list that screams to be abused. Unmarked Grave, 1 in a black sorcery. Search your library for a non-legendary card. Put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle. So a fixed Entomb that costs a mana more is a sorcery and can't get legends.
So Entomb is so good, you need to hit it on 3 different axes to put it in the playables pile.
But it might still be broken. What do you think? And obviously the getting a non-legendary thing in a big way helps mix it up so that you're not just getting Emrakuls and Gristlebrands, Yeah, which I appreciate.
I mean, so I was thinking about this, and I haven't had enough opportunity to think about what non-legendary stuff I wanted to put into my graveyard yet. I actually just went back and checked like on all the stuff, comparing it to Entomb. Like, yes, this is in fact worse than Entomb 3 different ways. I don't know how I feel about this card yet. My sense is I don't like, on first blush, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And you're probably right. It's probably got some ridiculous sickness.
I'm not saying it's broken. I'm just saying that's what you try to do with it, right?
I mean, like, I'm just going to say, like, an Unburial Rites, for example, a card that not really very many people play in Modern, right? I mean, I guess people do play Unburial Rites in, like, gift decks or whatever, but you could just get a card like that, and it just does whatever. It does exactly what you wanted, like, for exactly the mana you wanted it. Maybe decks that would want to play Unburial Rites would play Unmarked Grave. They probably would, now that I think about it out loud. There's other stuff.
I don't know. Would they really?
I mean,
like,
it's
building. That's an expensive way to do it, right?
I mean, it's like just a demonic tutor for a Zombify, or it's a demonic tutor for the card you want to Zombify.
And that's good enough for Modern to you?
I don't. I mean, like I was saying before, the decks that play Unburial Rites are pretty narrow, right? Like they're not really fair Unburial Rites decks. They're gifts Unburial Rites, and they're not even popular right now. So
yeah. I mean, we'll see. I got a feeling that that's not going to be. Maybe it will, but it's hard to be really drawn to demonic tutor for Zombify in a format as powerful as Modern.
Do you think you could Unmarked Grave for like Life from the Loam?
Well, that's a thing, right? Like in that spot, you're demonic tutoring for any dredge card, right? But you're getting it in your graveyard instead of your hand, so you are down a card. But that's at least, you're actually doing something if you do that. But is it enough? Because it's like that's still like way worse than gamble, right?
Ugh.
Not that you can just gamble all the time, but some cards that are kind of note with this card, you can get World Spine Worm. Like that's kind of like a somewhat interesting target, right?
If you want to get something with an enormous casting cost.
Yeah. You can I don't know, man. Like at the end of the day, is just building another version of Reanimator even really the way?
I don't know. Maybe this makes some of those decks more consistent than they are right now. Right? I'm not sure.
Yeah, artifacts.
All the Reanimator decks that we're talking about 2 calendar years out, I think, at this point, since I've actually played a Paper Modern tournament. Like not like a total number of days, right? We were talking about like end of 2019, maybe very early 2020. But my recollection of losing to Reanimator decks was typically that they were using legendary creatures like Grizzlebrand. So I don't know, like that. Is anybody just like reanimating a Primeval Titan? Like, no, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's Platinum Imperium, World Spine Worm. Like, there are some big cards that are not, some of those 8 cost green creatures that do 1 million when they attack.
All right,
but
maybe there's a new archetype that's going to come out of this.
There's also the possibility of just getting some artifact that you're going to reanimate some other way.
That's fair.
I don't know. I'm medium on the card, but it obviously has potential. Plus, who knows? Maybe it's just worth playing a few extra Entombs in your Legacy deck. Like you go, there's a couple targets. You can't get Iona or whatever, but you can get, or Grizzlebrand obviously, but you can get. There's a few things you could get. Stop your opponent from attacking. I mean, speaking of things you could go get that do something, what do you think of Timeless Dragon?
This is my favorite card that's been spoiled so far from the set.
This is the 3 white 5/5 dragon with flying, plane cycling, and eternalize 2 white. So this is like taking Eternal Dragon and kind of buffing it for the modern sensibilities. It costs 2 mana less than Eternal Dragon, and instead of just having a perpetual 5-cost draw from your graveyard ability, it actually has Eternalize 2 white, which lets you get a 4/4 flying Dragon, so you can actually just plain cycle it on turn 2 or 3, including getting a part white dual in, untap, Eternalize on turn 4, and you just have this 4/4 flying black zombie dragon. You know?
So do you actually think this is a buff relative to Eternal Dragon?
A huge buff.
Interesting.
Yeah, do you think it's not?
I think it is a different card, right? So like Eternal Dragon,
I don't even think it's a different card.
mana.
I just think it's I think this card's miles better.
Oh no, I typically, I mean, you know me, I played a lot of Eternal Dragons back when you could play them.
Yeah, I know, but the format was really weak. I'm comparing this card to Modern. Eternal Dragon doesn't sniff Modern, right?
Well, it's not legal, right? That's a. I mean, did it
No, I'm saying its power level. Its power level wouldn't be in the ballpark, right?
No, I mean, well, there's no home for it. I think is the way that I would think about it. I mean, maybe there is. Like, you need Eternal Dragon needs to have like a place. It's a very particular kind of card, right? Like, it needs to be in a deck like just a very vanilla kind of blue-white control deck or mono-white control deck that can play 14 turns of Magic and not lose. Maybe that just can't exist in Modern, right? Like,
no, it has nothing to do with that, man. If Eternal Dragon was good enough, it would get played. It doesn't need a particular deck. It just needs a good enough rate. Right? Like if Eternal Dragon, for instance, go to the extreme. If Eternal Dragon costs 4, do you think it needs a particular deck?
No.
No, of course not. Right? It's not about Eternal Dragon being all fancy. It's not like spending 5 mana to draw an extra card after you spent 2 mana plane cycling is like the end-all be-all part of the package, right? But 7 cost 5/5 is just so far from anything you can plausibly do.
Yeah.
But this card, being able to so think of it this way. Let's set aside the fact that obviously a 5-cost 5/5 flyer is much better than a 7-cost 5/5 flyer.
No question.
When you have it in your graveyard, you can spend 4 mana to get a 4/4 flyer in play one time. That's like pretty good for a cantrip, right?
I mean, that's pretty good, right? If you like 4/4 flyer for 4 out of your graveyard,
so
I mean, like 4/4 flyer for 4 out of your hand, it is not usually good enough. But you need to have a qualifier on making it not good. You know what I mean? Like it's you got to think about why it's not good enough.
This card is like the graveyard ability in some ways. It's like it costs 1 mana less. Both cases you draw a card, but in one of the cases, the card you draw is a 7-cost 5/5 flyer, right? That has plane cycling and the ability to be rebought. But in the other one, the card you draw is a 0 mana 4/4 flyer. That's so much better than having the rebuy over and over again, and that's to say nothing of this card being cheaper in the first place.
Yeah, I mean,
so I think this card is miles better. It's not even close. I think this card is better than Eternal Dragon would be if Eternal Dragon costs 5.
I don't know, man. Like, Eternal Dragon was a source of inevitability. That wasn't just like, oh, I have this card at a good rate, right? Like, Eternal Dragon, like, you either had particular cards to beat it or it would beat you.
I know, because all the cards were weak. Compared to Modern, Onslaught Block Era was not powerful. Not across the board anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's particular cards, like, you know, Goblin War Chief or something like that. You know, that's a different story.
Regardless, this is like such the sweet card. This is one of my favorite cards in a long time.
It's my favorite card that they've spoiled so far. I said that already. I'm not articulating very well why I don't agree with you, but I understand your points and I understand where you're coming from, especially with regards to the Modern sensibility, specifically about the Modern format. Maybe I just have a soft spot for Eternal Dragon. Maybe I just have a soft skull.
Yeah.
But you're going to agree with that? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, tell you what. what's going to happen first? People play Timeless Dragon or Eternal Dragon moving forward in Legacy?
Well, Legacy is light years more powerful than Modern.
And this card is light years more powerful than Eternal Dragon. Keep going.
I think that Timeless Dragon has a strong chance of seeing play in Modern.
Dude, you know what's a great combo? This card with Liliana of the Veil.
Oh my god. What if this card, Ephemerate, Grief, Liliana of the Veil, all had a baby together, and that baby was an Orzhov midrange deck?
Maybe. Could be. I know that would be your dream come true, and I can't blame you.
Man, but I have a rule against playing cards that cost more than one in Modern. Might have to break that rule.
Yeah, but if they're a cantrip out of the graveyard, I mean that's like. Besides, you're going to find out Timeless Dragon this is pure joy. Maybe the Orzhov deck could actually be Esper. After all, Dakin Shadow Slayer is a option now. Dakin Shadow Slayer is a new Planeswalker, white, blue, black for a Planeswalker that starts off with an amount of loyalty equal to the number of lands you control. And +1, Surveil 2, where you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and if you want, you can put any of them in your graveyard. Put the rest back in any order. -3, exile target creature. And -6, you may put an artifact card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield.
So I think this card is exciting in part because you can get cards like, just blue-white or black-white shocklands, which are plains swamps or plains islands, with the Timeless Dragon to help cast it. So you could plains cycle the Timeless Dragon on turn 2. Or, I mean, I don't know, maybe if you just started off with blue and black as your first 2 lands, the plains cycling is colorless, you could get a basic plains if you wanted. Slap down Dakon's Shadow Slayer, end up with a 3 loyalty planeswalker. And the low end of the range on this card is it costs 3 mana, has 3 starting loyalty, you can exile target creature. Exiling a creature for 3 mana is not too bad. It's not like, if there was a card just like sorcery, speed, exile target creature, it probably wouldn't see Modern play. It would certainly see play in smaller formats than Modern. But that's not just the only thing this card does, right? Like if
for 4 mana, it's pretty outrageous, right? You get to exile a creature and still have Dakin.
Yeah.
To start surveilling up, and you don't even have to really spend 4. You just have to have 4 land.
Well, the other thing is Surveil itself is kind of card advantage, right? Like if you're surveilling and you put Timeless Dragon into the graveyard with Surveil, you actually drew a card there, right? Like that's
well,
cool.
It also works with the -6, right? Because if you surveil and you see one of your big artifacts, being able to put it in your graveyard could be really efficient. So you don't have to use an artifact out of your hand.
These are all true stories.
Now, that it doesn't care about the cost is kind of interesting because you can just, you could play it with Inkwell Leviathan, which some Reanimator decks use, some Tinker decks. You can play it with Blightsteel Colossus. You don't do it out of the graveyard on that one, but you can just play Blightsteel Colossus out of your hand.
Ahead of schedule, right? Like you could either
land.
Play this with if you had 6 land in play, you cast Dagon Shadow Slayer with double counterspell backup. If you did it on 6 land, right, you could have counterspell and a Pierce, for example, right, and then you could just Blightsteel Colossus straight into play, or you could play this earlier and then just surveil up to the loyalty for the -6. Those are both possibilities.
Definitely. And there's also stuff like Platinum Angel, Platinum Empyrean. There's a lot of pretty busty artifacts.
So you like this one? This one looks pretty good to you?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
I don't like this one. I love this one. And part of the reason was I just saw the word Dagon, didn't read any of the text, saw the 0 in the bottom right corner, and I said to myself, I bet this has loyalty equal to the number of lands you have in play. And I was right. And that means that they got this one straight in the Vorthos.
Yeah, but dude, don't you want to get back Shroom the Hegemon and do some kind of infinite combo? Or if that doesn't do it for you, what about just Torrential Gearhulk, man? Wouldn't you like to play this in a Torrential Gearhulk deck?
To think about that for a second. So first of all,
on turn 6, just on turn 6 or turn 7, really, because then you could just completely take over. But on turn 4, you can play this card, kill something, still have a Planeswalker giving you an advantage. But later in the game, you have this threat. I mean, obviously, it could be sitting in play ticking up, right? But if nothing else, you can drop it when you have 7 land, get back Torrential Gearhulk that you played previous, or that you discarded from anything else. But and then you still have all your mana open, and you still have this Planeswalker. I mean, I don't know. It's so versatile. And it's a great turn 3 play. In particular, you can just play it on turn 3 and tick up.
Yeah. I think that, this is an real interesting card. It's kind of like stowing mana. It's like kind of like a storage land, right? Like, because you can store future expenditure of mana expressed as the -6 loyalty ability by ticking up, or like you just create an imbalance of mana by saying like, all right, I'm going to get 8 loyalty worth of value because I have 8 lands in play, but I'm only going to spend 3 mana, so I'm actually going to have 5 open. So I have like effective 13, you know, like it's kind of really, like, there's not any other cards I can think of that are like that, right? That it's just like, you're just kind of stockpiling other resources that can be expressed as mana. Maybe the Hive in Standard is like that. That's the closest thing I can think of. You know, it's just some
you
weird...
have an exotic mind.
I don't know, man. I like brewing deck ideas.
Definitely.
Most of them start with Monastery Swiftspear, but maybe these cards will make me change my religion.
I think this card's gonna. I think this card's gonna do well, and I think this card's gonna show up in a little bit in Legacy and maybe even Vintage. It's pretty sweet in a Tinker deck. But yeah, here's another combo, man. You can go Unmarked Grave, Dak, and Shadow Slayer. It's a tough way to do it, but like, if you're just trying to reanimate artifacts, the big boy here, there is another monster that you can't reanimate. You can't do any of the Unmarked Grave shenanigans with, but that makes itself cheaper anyway. Thrasta Tempest's Roar is 10 green for a 7/7 legendary dinosaur. It costs 3 less for each other spell cast this turn. And it has Trample Haste, Trample over Planeswalkers, where you kill the Planeswalker and any extra damage goes to their face.
So that's a cool ability.
And then it also has Hexproof as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. So what do you think, man? 12 mana is a lot, but what about 9 or 6 or 4 or... I mean, sorry, 9 or 6 or 3 or 2?
Yeah, what if you just drew 3 Manamorphoses? Right? Like, that's going to be a pretty good early turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, let's see. 3 Manamorphoses, I keep 2, and I just discounted by 9. Yes, I like this. It's pretty.
You can also use it with other zeros, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the card is like, I think it's going to take some actual sort of practice testing out in different deck shells, because it's not intuitive to me at all how to get the discounting beyond something silly like I drew 3 Manamorphoses. I guess, like, if you just... I mean, a lot of the cards I'm thinking of, because you were mentioning zeros, are either not legal or you just wouldn't play them in a Throsta deck, right? However...
Really?
I mean, are you going to play, like, some random, like, zero casting cost artifacts in just to get Throsta out faster?
What if you were playing them anyway? What if your zero cost artifacts are like Memnite, Ornithopter, Springleaf Drum? I don't know.
I don't know. This seems like it would make your deck that has Memnite, Ornithopter, and Springleaf Drum hella clunky. Like, I don't want to draw Throsta at that point.
What about Heritage Druid?
Huh. That's where I was thinking, because like you essentially have a 1 mana to 1 mana. I'm sorry, you have a 1 mana to 3 mana conversion, like for every elf, right? So elf costs 1, Heritage Druid, whether kind of that takes 3 off Throsta. That is where I think you just need to practice it so you understand what the math.
Really?
Is.
Okay. What about the deck we were talking about last week? What if you were playing with like Lava Dart, Gut Shot, Mutagenic Growth?
First of all, this is going to sound heretical.
It's really easy to just play this guy on turn 2, right?
Easy is not the right word.
Why? Yeah, why would it not be easy? Okay, so to play it on turn 2, you need to have 3 zeros, right?
Okay.
I guess you need 4, right? You do need 4. But if none of the stuff nets any mana.
Let's just play it on turn 3. I think it's easier to play it on turn 3, for example.
Well, it's a card easier, and you drew an extra card, but like...
You drew a land. That's the reason why I think it's... or you could play a third land, is what I mean.
Right, but you also... But playing it on... I just don't think playing it on turn 2 is even that hard, necessarily. Like, when you've got Manamorphose, Mishra's Bauble... mutagenic growth, potentially. I don't know. We'll see. It's easy is probably better describing it on turn 3, but like it's also this guy hits like a ton of bricks.
Mutagenic growth is, even if you drew it, I mean, there's no guarantee you would be able to use that as your Throsta setup.
Dude, you got Monastery Swiftspear on the turn 1.
Look, man,
right?
I said far be it for me to criticize anything having to do with young Taylor Swiftspear. However, like our deck is now a Throsta deck. Like, I think we've made our super consistent. Here's a guy. Potentially, here's 2 more guys. Here's a blitz attack into.
I don't know.
I've got a 7/7 haste hexproof trample.
I'm not sold that those decks are super consistent, but actually, there is a card that is very conducive to consistency. That's just very flexible, very attractive. Flame Tongue Yearling.
Love it.
Red for a 2/1 Kavu. Multi-kicker 2. And it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each time it was kicked. And when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature, which can potentially include itself, so be careful.
Yeah, that was the back in the day problem with Flame Tongue Kavu. I mean, people would sometimes just say, like, pants. They'd say pants, or they'd say creature enchantment, and they would, like, Flame Tongue Kavu their own elf or whatever, because, like, it was just a 4/2 is just better than their elf in the board position they were in. I think that this card is going to be sweet, right? So, just on 2, it's highly, highly comparable to, like, the Viashino Pyromancer, right? That guy is also 2 mana for a 2/1 that deals 2 when it comes into play. So
hitting a creature is so much better than face.
Yeah, so it's very comparable to that. And like I was about to say, that card's pretty good, right? So it's not people aren't signing up to play with that card that much in Modern, but it's heavily played in Pioneer and Historic.
They just play out so differently. I don't know that that's even the fair comparison. At the end of the day,
I'm going to use your
2/1
term. This is a rate thing on 2, right? Those are very comparable on rate.
Oh, I don't think so.
This one's better.
Okay, I guess they're comparable in that they're different. This one, it has a better rate than that other card that doesn't get played a ton, but I think its application is going to be quite different because I think you're going to want to use this fair. Like, this is a very mid-rangey card, and I think it's awesome, some of the cards they're pushing in this set, like that dragon and like this yearling. The yearling being able to take out stuff like a Dark Confidant or a Birds of Paradise or a Naked Scavenging Ooze. I think there's a lot to this card, and that you can actually play it as a 3/2 that does 3 is kind of an exciting way to upgrade it. And the fact that it actually keeps scaling, there's kind of a lot of play to it, but I definitely think that playing it as a 2-mana card is going to be the primary application.
I agree with everything you just said, except that I would actually kind of magnify the alternative. I think this card is going to see more play at 4 and 6 and 8 than people are probably imagining right now. Like, red decks in Modern...
Is it going to play more than it costs 2? Like, are they going to play it for 4?
Oh, no. What I'm saying is I think that its mode application will be at 2. Strong agree. But I'm saying, you're going to be surprised at how many times you play it at 8. That's the thing. It's like red decks in Modern often get into these spots, or even if they have like a lot of, Red Horizon canopies and stuff, and there's like lava darts, and it's like, oh, I suddenly have 8 land in play. What am I going to do? And this is a pretty good thing to top in that situation.
Totally. This is also the type of card that I think, those red decks that you always see that are like Blood Moons, Magus of the Moons, and like whatever red cards they feel like winning with, like Stormbreath Dragon and Chandra or whatever.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm talking about. Like, and then maybe a little bit of land destruction on top of it, Molten Rain or Pillage or whatever.
Oh, I was actually thinking of one that's like the Blood Moon, sometimes they play like what's the name of the Ratchet Bomb? Is it just Ratchet Bomb?
Well, there's Ratchet Bomb, but there's Engineer Explosives. The Ratchet Bomb's the one that people will
the one that has Blood Moon and Ratchet Bomb and like
I'm curious what
Pyromancer.
Ratchet Bomb has to do with anything.
No, I'm just saying that's that version I'm saying. This is going to go into that deck a lot. It just happens to have Ratchet Bomb, that deck.
Okay. But I think this guy's going to be pretty sweet. It'd be kind of cool if the game was a little bit more about stuff like this. There is one more card this week to talk about. Yusri Fortune's Flame. 1 blue-red for a 2/3 flyer, and when it attacks, you choose a number between 1 and 5. And I'm guessing it's implicit that has to be like, a whole number. But you pick a number between 1 and 5 and inclusive, and you flip that many coins. For each flip you win, draw a card. For each flip you lose, Yusri deals 2 damage to you. And if you won 5 flips this way, you may cast spells from your hand this turn without paying their mana costs. No guts, no glory.
Yeah, I think this card is cool. I think. I think for myself, if I had this card in play, I would be picking 1 a lot. I don't know.
Why would you? You would attack for like a 50-50 shot of a card and a 50-50 shot of 2 life?
I mean,
you like that better than a 50-50? Like, the alternative, consider, for instance, the implications of 2. With 2, you're now 75% to get at least 1 card. You're 25% to get 2 cards. And on the average, you're still only taking 2 damage instead of 1. And if you take 4 damage, so what?
All right, I'll pick 5 every time. I changed my religion.
Well, you don't want to pick 5 every time, right? Like if you pick 5 and then you lose 5 flips and you're at 10, maybe you got to just pick 5 again, because at a certain point you're like, well, at this point I really need to get lucky.
You got to get big or die trying, right? This gives you the opportunity to die trying. So how do you feel about this card? Like, let's talk about this card. Put aside the possibility of drawing cards and dealing 2. I guess you can't. It's terrible if you put that aside, right?
That's the
unplayable.
31 of I guess in 30 of the cases. Yeah, basically this is very much a card that draws cards. Most of the time, the mana cheat ability is just a very small part of the range.
I think the more I think about it, even out loud, I think you got to pick 5 more than you might be imagining right now.
Well, I don't know. I bet it's exactly as much as I'm imagining.
You're gonna pick 5 a lot, huh?
Dude, why would I not? The only reason to not pick 5 is if they errata it to let you pick 6, man.
Oh man, remember that time you, Nassif, Ignite Memories? You should be picking 5.
Oh,
you
dude,
personally, 5.
I actually. Yeah, nice, Robins. But I do actually, I forgot there's one more card. Isn't that new Merfolk Rashad in Deckhand? That's kind of like a Rashad import for Merfolk decks. Blue for a 1/2 Merfolk with Island Walk that has tap and pay 1 to tap target land.
Oh, wow.
I know this card's unassuming, but isn't this card pretty good?
I mean,
but you don't have that much competition at the 1 spot anyway, and this is like a very real form of disruption.
I actually, that's exactly where my head went. The 1 casting cost in the Merfolk deck is awful. Right? I mean, you have like it can get bigger if they shuffle, that guy. Like, it's not even that exciting, right? Like, I think this is much better. Also, if you think about the fact that the Merfolk deck is typically a Spreading Seas deck, the combo of tap target land in a Spreading Seas deck it's obviously it's like not quote exciting. Like you're using a mana of your own and an additional card, Rishadan Dockhand, to contain one of the opponent's permanents, right? So like you're kind of behind.
You Spreading Seas one of their lands, and you Rishadan Dockhand a different land.
No, that's what I'm saying, right? Like the Dockhand in the abstract is always kind of behind. However, if you combine it into the fact, I'm playing a Spreading Seas deck, that's a substantial amount of like, especially like mid-game disruption. I can totally imagine a situation where like you completely lock certain deck types out of being able to cast spells at all, right? Like if you're playing against like a lot of like these kind of Boros or mono red decks that have a lot of burn in them, those decks typically can't even utilize the colorless mana that they would be getting from, it's blue mana, right? From Spreading Seas. It's just like actually just a Stone Rain cantrip. Like all their pips are red. And those decks also often have situations where they need to spectacle you, or their card that they were going to cast was a sorcery speed card. So Rishadan Dockhand like literally just turns off their ability to use the red that they had left over. It actually seems awesome to me.
Now here's two little pieces that kind of just make it even spicier. The first, just a tactical move. If you're playing against a control deck, you can stick this on turn 1 pretty easily under any kind of permission. And then you can actually disrupt them where you go, okay, on your turn, I tap one of your land, untap, tap another one of your land, and then get my card through. So you can like really maneuver against people who are playing permission. But second of all, dude, Marrow Regery.
Oh, that's
With
true.
the Regery, you can actually potentially use this card to lock down multiple lands.
So here's another application potentially for the Dockhand I was thinking about. What if you sided this in a blue-white control deck, just like a regular blue-white control deck, potentially for control mirrors, right? So those kind of decks often have some kind of sideboard slot where they just want to have a card that comes in low on curve, can slide under the opponent's permission wall, right? So this comes down on turn 1, totally satisfies that condition. It's not a very fast clock, but it does have some upsides. Like so, because it has Island Walk, like if they have like a Wall of Omens or something like that, they can't defend themselves from it. But I think more importantly, think about like the Dockhand very strategically. Like, what if it's like turn 4, turn 5? You can like keep them off their Teferi mana, or just what you were saying before. Like, can you just like tap their blue at the end of their turn, tap their blue on your turn, and then just resolve your big spell? Like, it seems like that's a legitimate application for Rishadan Dockhand outside of Merfolk.
Well, a little bit ambitious, but maybe. Either way, I think it's pretty clear that this week's batch of spoilers is no joke. What's your pick for card of the week?
Oh, I'm just heart emoji for days for Timeless Dragon.
I think that the Timeless Dragon's my favorite, and Grief is the most powerful.
I think that Timeless Dragon is my favorite, and Dakon Shadow Slayer is...
Ooh, that could be.
...is my next favorite. Grief is like brown butter, man. It's cheap thrills. Things that cost 0 that have high impact, you didn't stretch very far to pick that one. If we had both, for example, picked Rishadan Dockhand as card of the week, I think that we would have just both been wrong.
All right. Looking forward to next week as the spoilers keep coming, man. All right. See you then.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, it's a jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Yukora trapped in amber stasis state. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind. Had to find a way not to lose my mind.